Hey guys, what's up? It is Ripe again, back with a mix of Neighbors from Hell, malicious compliance and revenge stories. If you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our awesome community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, I guess it is Property Battles Week, here is a 2-in-1. Inspired by property battles posted recently, I figured I would share this 2-in-1. I live in Minnesota in a rural township neighborhood that is between another couple of other rural neighborhoods and farms. Everything here is a square grid as far as major road-wise, except when wetlands dictate otherwise, or neighborhood developers decided curvy township streets were prettier. Our house is on the inside loop cornering the township street and a county road. As a consequence, we have 7 property line stakes with plastic caps denoting our plat ID number and coordinates from a monument at the corner of the neighborhood, which originates to one of the original 1850 surveys of our county. This is important to know for later in the story. Part 1, we bought the house about 6 years ago and it was mostly wooded. Our eastern neighbor was actually parking their boat on our property under a mistaken belief that where the irregular woods ended was theirs. A nice guy, bit of a drunk, and eventually later that year he and his wife separated and eventually divorced. His wife is not nearly as friendly, she started dating a new guy. The 3 daughters like to play in the woods that is actually my southern neighbor's property, and sometimes the girls would take shortcuts straddling the southern neighbor and us on their adventures. Whatever, good for them, reminds me of my childhood adventures running through neighborhoods and small urban woods to play with my friends. Except I started noticing a particular kind of trash ending up on my property of juice boxes, fruit snacks and single-serve desserts. Maybe these were being blown from somewhere, but that couldn't be because that is some dense woods on that site. The 6th time I found the trash and picked it up that summer, I chose to go talk to mom and new dad. I thought I was being polite, but new dad essentially told me, "Without pictures or video, it hasn't happened, don't bother us." Okay, fine, it is fall, I've been meaning to get a couple of trail cameras, let's do this. Other than a couple of times of the girls walking through that fall and winter, nothing. Then next spring comes around and there are pictures of these girls littering and even starting fires when burn restrictions are on. By the way, I just want to point out that we live near an airport that the MN Department of Natural Resources flies out of during burn restrictions to find offenders. One of our friends is a spotter for them and knows our house and property from the air. I print out the most incriminating pictures and again visit with mom and new dad. He mentions there is no proof that is happening on my property or even the southern neighbors. Okay dude, you want a fight? I rent a metal detector, go on the county website to get the legal description of the property and set off to find the property line stakes. So I got a video of me finding 6 of the 7 and clearly showing where they are in relation to the significant visual references such as distinct medium-sized trees. I also clear a 5-foot wide path down the south side of the property line, and within a month I have dozens of pictures of these littering and occasionally playing with fire. I made sure to walk my dogs daily and would hold a newspaper clearly to one of the trail cams so that time could not be disputed. I called the sheriff's department and explained I just want the girls to stop littering and burning and they are okay to pass through but not to play on my property. Neighbor mom came over right after the sheriff's office talked with them and went off on me, at some point threatening me, all on video because I turned my cell phone on before opening the door. My wife called the sheriff's department again and they were back within a minute. Neighbor's mom was trespassed along with her daughters and assessed a $700 fine times 3 for each girl littering. Mom has to pay because the daughters are minors. I didn't ask them to hit her hard with fines and trespass their kids, just keep this woman and her garbage off my land. She contested the fines and trespass paperwork and a judge reduced the fine to just 1 instance, but explained when a sheriff's deputy tells you to mind your business and control your children, you don't defy him minutes later. You are being fined and restricted for violating the good order of this community. Part 2 of the story, you would think this woman would tread carefully with me, but nope. Despite knowing that I have trail cams covering my backyard, that I'm not afraid to step up for myself, nor do I put up with crap whatsoever, Mom and new dad have forgotten my sting. Rather than practice due diligence and establish the western extent of their property, they clear some vegetation in my irregular wood line and lay some timbers for what I assume to be a small shed. I sent them a letter with an aerial map printed from the County Land Survey website and clearly marked my western/their eastern boundary, north-south property stakes. I also have the trail cam set to record video for 2 minutes after movement is detected. They moved the shed timbers to their property and set it up too close to the property line according to building code. Whatever, it is a shed that I cannot see from my actual house except in the winter when all the leaves are off the trees. Only another year goes by and new dad decides he wants a large pole shed. By now the trail cam is back to just taking pictures and the field of view is limited to only a few feet onto the neighbor's property. When I saw the footing excavation stakes one morning, I knew they were too close to my property line, so I called the county building department. You can see the area in question from the county road, but I rarely travel that way, so I didn't notice until after the new building was up that the building stood where they marked it originally, but my corner property stake appeared moved. Remember kids, when I searched for that stake a couple of years before, I had video of where it was in relation to distinct trees, plural trees. When I went out to that back corner of the property, the county paid for survey stake had been moved so that my neighbor's building appeared in compliance with the required 20-foot setback. I was mad. I was very mad. I am very grateful that despite not maintaining the trail cam for over a year, it had caught when the neighbor dad moved the property's stake. Sometime later that summer, after the building was erected, did the camera battery die. Not before several dozen times it caught the neighbor dad and the construction workers peeing on my property. I called the county building department and they were none too helpful because their previous on-site inspection was satisfactory for them. They said I could pay them to resurvey this stake or I could elect to hire a private company certified by the state to resurvey, but that did not guarantee a challenge to a setback violation. Well, fraud sure as hell does, and I set off to prove it. I opted for the private survey and they put a new stake in where the old one was, thus not only certifying my neighbor's new building was violating the setback, so was the shed. I sent a letter to my neighbors, the county building department and the county attorney's office with the survey records. A DVD with a video slideshow of the neighbor moving the survey stake and the previous video showing they already knew where the property line was over the shed timbers and several dozen slides of people pissing on my property. I demanded the county change its setback oversight procedure, they prosecute the neighbor dad for pissing on my property, and that the neighbor settles with me for treble damages on the survey, and if satisfied I would endorse a setback variance instead of making him take 4 feet off the back of the building. After 6 months of legal posturing between the county, the neighbor and neighbor dad and me, all was resolved. The neighbor settled with me for double the survey, the county allowed the variance but doubled the fees as punishment, and neighbor dad was convicted of disorderly conduct with a stay of imposition after a year, meaning the conviction is now expunged. They even waved to us now, all thanks to neighbor dad telling me years ago I needed a camera to prove the girls were littering on my property. And guys, as usual, be careful what you wish for. You could say that OP just maliciously complied with the neighbor's orders, and therefore the neighbor got into all this trouble, which of course the awful neighbor deserved. In addition, if you have watched until here and enjoy my content, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is titled, Oops, my seat must be broken. I fly often for work, so often I was within sight of passing the million-mile mark on my favorite airline when I suddenly started working from home last year. Anyways, this happened nearly 10 years ago. After boarding the plane I get my aisle seat and wait for the passenger loading to finish. Suddenly, I felt the back of my seat move in that slightly disturbing way they do when the person behind you uses it as an accessibility handle to help them stand up. No big deal, I figured it was probably a physically impaired person that really needed the extra leverage to stand. That theory did not last long, as the middle-aged woman strolled past my seat to the restroom near the front with nary a problem. She did not seem physically disabled at all. Oh well, maybe this was her first flight and she didn't know how rude that is, or maybe she slipped a little and caught herself with my seat. By mid-flight I knew better. She kept getting up every 10 minutes, using my seat back to do so and letting it springboard back when she let go. I was so irritated, I eavesdropped a little and heard her telling some guy next to her all about her travel job and also about the mud run she was preparing for, so proud of her last one. Good for her, but she didn't need to grab my seat for help getting up. Now, I should have politely asked her to stop, but this is petty revenge, so I obviously didn't do any additional adulting that day. Nope, when I heard her tell the guy next to her that she'd be right back, I leaned forward and depressed the seat recline button just in time for her to grab her favorite point of leverage, my seat. She wasn't expecting it to instantly fly back the entire 2 inches into the fully reclined mode. She gasped and then apologized to me. Such sweet music to my petty ears. More importantly, she learned not to do that anymore, at least with my seat, since I am petty AF and that is the only one I really cared about. And you know guys, when it comes to long flights, I can definitely understand what this dude is talking about. However, usually I gotta say, for me this is not much of an issue, because if I am on a long flight, for example Europe to Thailand, I usually have no trouble sleeping for at least 6+ hours, so I don't even notice any awful seat neighbors. However, I gotta say, nowadays I would be a bit wary to fly, since the last time I took a little flight from northern Thailand to Bangkok, which was only around 1.5 hours, we had to wear a mask, obviously, for the entire duration of the flight, and those 1.5 hours already gave me a pretty good headache. And don't get me wrong, I have nothing against masks, but I cannot really imagine having a mask on for 8+ hours in an airplane, but I guess for now we just have to get used to it. And the next one is titled Theme Park Line Cutting Revenge. Last week a friend and I packed up our 9-year-old daughters and drove 6 hours to a Southern California theme park. While the park was not insanely crowded for June, there were many middle and high school groups there that day. It was the last week of school. As we made our way through the park, we encountered many clusters of these kids. They stood out in their bright matching t-shirts and were almost always being loud and acting obnoxious. The worst part was the line cutting. These kids either didn't know or didn't care that cutting in line is a great way to piss people off. The kids would push through the line, saying something along the lines of, "Excuse us, our kids are right up there," and skip over hundreds of people who had waited patiently. The first time it happened, we verbally objected, but the lady insisted that she had to join her group of kids in line. The second time, 3 high school girls pushed past to join their one friend, who was a few people ahead of us in line. We objected, but they gave us a crappy look and then ignored our verbal protests. We were stuck in a shaking line and there was little we could do, and these girls knew it. The closest park employees were at the front of the line helping guests board the rides. I had an idea for revenge, but it would require a little patience. After a fairly lengthy wait in line, our turn to board the ride was near. We were ushered to one side of the boarding platform to wait for our carriage. Just as I had hoped, the girls who cut the line were waiting to board on the opposite side. I tapped the nearest employee on the shoulder and said, "Excuse me, but these 3 girls cut the line." The girls tried to say they hadn't cut, but I motioned to my friend and said, "You can confirm with this lady right here." The employee chatted with his colleague before asking the girls to leave the ride. It was delicious. As an added bonus, the revenge continued to pay off. We witnessed line cutters on several other occasions that day, but found a way to shut it down. Each time it happened, I looked the kids in the eyes and told them, "Hey, just so you know, we just had 4 kids ejected from a ride for cutting in line, so you might want to reconsider." It did the trick because the responses were all about the same. "Oh, okay," followed by a quick exit from the line. Every time I think about it, it brings a smile to my face. And Ripe stars, by this point, since I have been to many theme parks in Europe, I am convinced that there is a special place in hell for people who cut in line at theme parks. I mean, you cannot really blame kids for that, especially if they are super young. However, since those were teenagers, I think exactly they knew what they were doing is wrong. So yeah guys, no mercy. I think what the OP did was absolutely brilliant. And the last one is a little bonus dog feel-good hero story from user cash21222 posted on our own subreddit r/ripestories. I have a story about my dog Sully, who went from Clark Kent to Superman and saved my life, I am sure. Obligatory, I am a 45-year-old female and this happened a while back. I had an amazing dog named Sully. Sadly, he passed over the Rainbow Bridge about 5 years ago. He was a mixed breed border collie/golden retriever mix. He was the size of and had the coat of an A Goldie but had the markings of a border. Instead of white and black, he had a white coat with golden makings. He was a gorgeous dog and smart as a whip. I had him trained on hand signals and he knew about 10 behaviors. That is not counting what he did naturally if you don't know border collies who are herding dogs. They are sheepdogs and they do this crouch and stalk maneuver. Sully did it naturally and it was funny watching him herd kids, other animals, birds or anything he felt was not where it belonged. But above all, he was protective. I never had to worry about kids being lost or strangers getting too close with Sully around, but I never worried because Sully was just so Clark Kent, it was hard to see him being aggressive or mean. I had no clue he was hiding his Superman till about 3 years after I got him. It was late at night, about 3 AM, I had just gotten home from a late shift and was getting ready for bed. It was a Saturday night and we lived in a pretty safe neighborhood, but we were close to the wrong side of the tracks and we have had a few issues. That night had been a major event in our town. The downtown was turned into a huge 10-block bar crawl block party. It was chaos. Well, the party spilled out of the blocked off area and since like I said we were close to it, the trouble reached our doorstep. As I was getting ready to settle into bed, I could hear a group of guys yelling and carrying on. I heard stuff break and the guys yelling like a bunch of jerks. Sully is normally a very quiet dog and I had never heard him growl at all. But that night he was on edge and letting out this low dark growl, his ears pinned back. Never trained him to be a guard dog, yet as I heard the voices get closer outside, I knew something was about to break off. Sully was at my side before I heard the first guy climbing my steps. My house has 2 entry points, my front door which had a 3-season porch and then my main door. Then my back door which you had to go through my fenced-in yard. The gate is locked to the backyard and the fence was 6 feet tall. Any shorter and Wondermud Sully would jump it chasing birds. I heard the guy on the porch trying to break down the door. Yeah, wrong move for him. I might be tiny and a girl, but I swing a mean bat. And apparently I was living with Cujo. Because my sweet-tempered dog went from Clark Kent to Superman in 5.2 seconds. I got no clue what possessed me, but I barked, "Sully, front door!" And my boy jumped into action like he was a trained soldier. I whipped open the main door and Sully was at the porch glass door in 2 seconds, flat fangs bared and ready for action. My front porch is all windows and I can see 3 guys climbing the fenced-in yard while the 3 on the steps to the porch scream dog. My back door is near the gate, the guys are climbing over. The back door has a dog door. I call out, "You have 2 seconds to get out of my yard," and then bark, "Sully, back door." By now confronted with Superdog and Batgirl, the 3 on my porch decided it is best to retreat, leaving their buddies to hang out as Sully busts out the back door and snarls like a crazy mutt. The guys freak out screaming about rabbit dogs and try to hop off the fence. One has his leg over the fence and Sully locks onto his pant legs. His buddies abandon him and take off running. The guy kicks free and is faced with an angry, tired woman and a ticked off K9, decided it is time to go. I call Sully inside, make sure the door is locked, check my hero over for wounds, not a scratch on him, made a phone call to the cops to let them know a bunch of yahoos were running the streets looking for a house to break into, and then I and Sully went to bed. I never saw him go off like that again. The kid still cuddled and ran around with him without fear. He was just a sweet, lovable dog till the end. And guys, if you have any similar interesting dog stories to share, then please share them either in the comments or on r/ripe stories on Reddit if you got a longer story to tell that you would like me to read in a video. Thank you so much. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, then I would suggest you check out my endless binge watch playlist, which includes hundreds of hours of ripe Reddit content just here on YouTube. In addition, guys, I do have to ask you for a favor. Lately I noticed that many of my new videos don't reach my old subscribers anymore for whatever reason, and so it would be really awesome if you could click the YouTube bell icon just to make sure that all my videos will reach you. This is especially true for people that are subscribed to my channel for longer than a year, because for some reason YouTube doesn't feel like it is necessary to always push out my subscription notices to these people as well. So thank you very much in advance, and I hope you have a great day, and I see you again tomorrow.